کاوش مدیا.
We've done some polling actually across the region, including in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Bahrain, United Arab Emirates. Iran is not a really big threat for people there. Even in Israel, it's a concern for the leadership in Israel. I don't know why the military head would come out now with this, especially with the new administration, where we don't know how they stand on some of these issues. But I have a feeling it was coordinated, obviously, with the Prime Minister's office to kind of now put pressure on the new Biden administration to make sure if there is going to be a new agreement with the Iranians, or they're going to open up the old agreement, that Israel takes it very seriously. Israel is very concerned with both the rhetoric and the capability of this Iranian regime, which seems to be still supporting terror and threatening with Israel's destruction. You know, do you think that Israel has a right to exist, Ali? Do you think that Israel has a right to exist, or are you going to keep going with that genocide policy? Where do you stand on Israel? I know Israel's not a threat to you. Where do you stand on Israel in the Middle East? Does Israel have a place in the Middle East?
Israel is considered an illegitimate entity based on occupation. But let me finish my answer first. If Israel was in a position to attack Iran, it would have carried out such an attack years ago. Israel has calculated that it cannot destroy Iran's nuclear facilities in a single successful military operation. And Iran will be in a position to respond decisively. That's exactly why Israel has refrained from carrying out such attacks. But Iran does know that Israel's strategy and third circle directorate within its military and intelligence apparatus under the Momentum Plan has been trying to plan a war against Iran, and Iran knows well how to respond. Iran has sufficient deterrence power to respond decisively to any Israeli military aggression.
Hillary, one of the biggest concerns voiced by the Israeli government and Israeli officials over the last few years about the 2015 nuclear deal is basically the sunset clauses, and they are concerned that this is something that could be conducive once the deal is finalized to provide Iran with a pathway to resume its nuclear capabilities and end up one day with the bomb.
Well, you know, I served in the United States government for a very long time. I was in the first Bush administration back in 1991 when Israeli government officials, including Yitzhak Rabin at the time, first started to raise what they called the threat of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons. And Israelis have been raising it ever since. Before 1991, they didn't raise it because their concern was Iraq and Iraq's path to a nuclear weapon. But when Iraq was so soundly defeated after its invasion of Kuwait, that wasn't so much of a threat for the Israelis. And when Iraq was contained with oil for food sanctions that killed nearly 50,000 Iraqi children, the Israelis weren't so worried about Iraq. I think what the Israelis are really worried about is Iran's military might and its power, whether it's nuclear weapons or anything else. There are just some facts of geography and facts of population. Iran is a huge country with a large, educated, sophisticated population. That's always going to be a problem for a small country like Israel and for some of the small Gulf states like Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates.
آنچه در مورد ما میگویند